Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, it's Sean, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. Have you ever wondered why people keep buying recipe books? Your grandma had a dozen books, so did your parents, and even if you're not such a good cook, you're likely to have quite a few around the house. Now, there are tens of thousands of recipe books and blogs and on YouTube and everywhere else. Even so, when yet another recipe book comes out, there's still a market for it. Why is this the case? The reason is more straightforward than you would expect, because this factor of recipe books doesn't just apply to food. If you've tried to learn a language, you're likely to have gone through a live course, bought several apps, and home study versions of the language. When the next Wonder Language program comes along, you'll still want to try it out. And all of these purchases of books, courses, and training don't just apply to beginners. An experienced writer, for example, will evaluate and possibly buy a new course or go to a writing event. So why is this the case? And how do we use this information to make a sales page better? How do we understand what our customers are really looking for? The things that people want haven't changed. That's why they still buy recipe books or do art courses or learn article writing. And it's the same with topics. People want to achieve what you want to achieve. But there are three very simple things that you have to look for, that you have to implement in your business. And they are easier, more fun, and precise result. We always start out in order, but let's go the last one first, which is precise result. Back in 1995, I attended a course where I was learning programs like CorelDRAW and Photoshop. And like most training, it advertised itself as a course where you could learn the programs. And like most students, you sign up expecting to understand what's being taught. Invariably, you get smarter, but you're not too much down the line from where you started. You don't really know CorelDRAW, you don't know Photoshop that well, and this shortcoming is easily demonstrated when you have to do something slightly out of the ordinary. I would, for example, learn something in the class and then try to replicate it a few days later. And I would be utterly lost. The reason for this kind of confusion wasn't because of the teaching method. Instead, it was because there was no precise result. What is a precise result, you may ask? A precise result is a benchmark. It means that everyone without exception, reaches a particular standard. A train journey is a good example which describes this sort of benchmark. So let's say we have a train that has to leave station A and get to station B by 11:40 a.m. Does it arrive on time? And if not, then how late? While it has made its way to the destination, did everyone get there at 11:40 a.m. or did some passengers get left behind in the trip between station A and station B? If this kind of analogy sounds ludicrous, it's not. In most training, there is a vague concept of we will learn Photoshop, but not precisely which part of Photoshop we'll cover. Hence, people go from not knowing the program to learning a little bit, and when they're at the end of the course, they know a little bit more but aren't exactly sure what they've covered. The opposite of this confusion is to precisely state what you're covering. Instead of we learn Photoshop, what you're saying is that everybody, and this is again very crucial, everybody will have a very high level of proficiency in one topic, and that is learning about adjustment layer essentials. And that's station B. When we get to station B, every single passenger on this train will know how to work with adjustment layers, understand the histogram, refine dynamic range using levels, adjust contrast and color, and I won't bother you with the whole list of them. But the point is that these elements are precise, because what you're saying is that you can benchmark exactly whether every participant can do what's needed. Instead of a vague, let's learn Photoshop, you now have a precise result. You can benchmark exactly what they're doing. And this is the kind of thing that we stumbled upon around 2010 or so. At Psychotactics, we do workshops, we do online courses, but we didn't have this benchmark. We didn't have this precise result. And now we do have that precise result. What's the difference? The difference is that people come back very quickly to do one course, second course, third course. And that's because they know when they get to the end of the headline course, they can write 8 different types of headlines in 10 minutes. Everybody can. If they're doing the landing page course, they can create a landing page in 3 days. Everybody can. If they're doing the article writing course, they can write articles with drama and story, and not just 7 ways or 7 steps to do this or that. One of the simplest ways to get these precise results is to cut back on what you're covering. No matter what you're teaching, you are covering way too much. And what happens with way too much is that you are rushing. You're trying to get from one end to the other. And so you don't stop and wait and measure for competency. So you just go, okay, we finished chapter 1, let's go to chapter 2. We finished chapter 2, let's go to chapter 3. And people fall back for different reasons. But you are rushing through. Whereas if you take that smaller topic, then you can cover it in more detail. If people fall back, they can catch up. Now you've got a benchmark, because at the end of it, everybody should be able to write those headlines, those 8 headlines in 10 minutes. And that's kind of the magic, because there is no ambiguity. It's all very clear, very precise, very 11:40 a.m. at Station B. And it's at this point in time that we get a little frustrated, because there are situations where you think, I can't control the result. So let's say you're in a service where you help to get couples pregnant. You can't guarantee the results, can you? What if you're a lawyer? You can't be sure that the ruling will go in your favor. If you're a travel agent, you have no control over the weather, the flights, the hotels. So many things are out of your control. Even so, there are things that you do have control. As a travel agent, you can control what happens if the client gets into trouble. Do they have a number they can call should they have a problem? There are always things that are going out of your control, but correspondingly, there are things that you have complete control over. When you look at the big picture and you promise, I'll teach you Photoshop, you're likely to be making a promise that is very cool, but hopelessly inaccurate as well. Clients sign up for results. To get results, you need to break down the product or service into smaller chunks and only cover that small chunk. And that's when your offering comes alive. And that's also when your sales page comes alive. So here are a bunch of vague bullet points for a photography course. Number 1, taking pictures of strangers. Number 2, composition. Number 3, night photography. But when you cover smaller sections, you can say, taking close-up pictures of strangers. And now that's a lot of detail that you have to cover. Or instead of just composition, you go composition in tight spaces. And now it's very clear what we are trying to achieve. Or instead of night photography, using reflected light to improve your night photography. And this is because clients sign up for results. Whether it's training, whether it's service or a product, it's always that they want a result. It's easy to say, oh, this is about Photoshop, it won't work for my business. The reality is that you invented your business to solve a problem. So if you sell foot cream or coffee or cleaning carpets, there's an apparent reason why you started out in business. At first, you may have just wanted to earn some income, but then you realize that you did something different. You spend more time in your business and you're doing something different. And clients came to you and continue to show up because you offer something that the competition doesn't. But your promise needs to be more precise. It can't be vague because it only works when the opposition is just as unclear. The moment you get a competitor that's precise with their result, your audience is going to leave and it's going to go across the fence, and that's it. In our desire to stuff our product or service with more benefits, we miss out on the specific. Clients amble from one service to another, one product to another, like lost people wandering through the desert. Yet, the moment you can give a result, things change. And if you can promise results alone, you're way ahead of the pack. But people are looking for something more. They don't just want results. The second thing that's on their mind is fun. I once spoke at a conference in Sweden where most of the participants were unhappy about a particular incident. When you and I think about unhappy people at a conference, we tend to go down well-trodden paths. Maybe there were a series of bad presentations, or maybe the room was too hot or too cold. Maybe the notes were missing, or the audio was terrible. And yet, none of these issues came up. So you're probably thinking to yourself, well, that sounds like a pretty good conference. Yet many of those participants were not happy. The reason? The spa pool was closed. The Yasuragi Conference Center is situated outside Stockholm. It has 191 hotel rooms and 422 beds. And it's built in a way that replicates Japan, but in the heart of Sweden. People wear Japanese kimono-like clothing. The rooms are all Japanese style, long corridors, light touches of Japanese art. But central to Japan's culture is the bath. Yasuragi has a long swimming-sized sauna filled with salt water. And for most of the clients, this was the highlight of their trip. They wanted to use the sauna, this huge, massive sauna. But because the conference center was in the process of doing some renovations, and because it was the end of the season, this sauna, this spa was closed. And the fun element of the event was swept away without warning. One of the big motivations in life is fun. Hence, no matter what product or service you're offering, there needs to be a fun component to it. A kid goes to the dentist, he gets a lollipop. What does the adult get? A big fat invoice. A client attends an online webinar series, but it's just a bunch of boring slides one after the other. Where's the fun? And if it's non-existent, the client is still going to buy your product, but they will not be overly motivated to buy a new product or service in a hurry. And when we talk about service, we think of an airline like Southwest Airlines. They are famous for the way they approach their business. Every airline does the same thing. They serve food, they serve similar food, and they take you from point A to point B. However, Southwest staff are given this chance to express themselves whenever they want to have fun. So you'll hear or you'll see on YouTube how they make these funny announcements, or they surprise the passengers with a fun activity. That is fun, and that is one kind of service that offers fun when they could just be like everybody else and be boring. When we look at Tesla, they're not very far behind. When you first get into a Tesla, you're wondering how everything works. You settle in, you scroll down through the panel, and guess what you see? You see the fart section. Yes, you heard it right. It's the fart section. You have a whole bunch of farts to choose from. They're not a fart, short shorts, ripper, falcon heavy, ludicrous fart, neura stink, boring fart, and I'm so random. Now those farts change over time, but here's the point. Why would a car need fart sounds? Because it's fun, that's why. When you look at a service or a product, you need to ask yourself, do people really join in because they want what I'm selling? And the answer might be yes if you're selling food or coffee or a house. However, how many of us really want to do an article writing course? Wouldn't you prefer that your fairy godmother tapped you on the shoulder and then you were magically able to write? Do you really want to learn Photoshop? Of course not. What you want is the result. You want the end point. So why not make the journey more fun? Reader's Digest put in several sections of fun in their very serious magazines. Newspapers used to have pages of cartoons, and now all they have online is awful news. It's not always easy to install a fun module because we're starting up a business. It takes all our energy to figure out what we're doing, where we're going, how to get clients, how to keep clients. However, in a very short time, you can sit back and you can ask yourself, how can we make this a bit more fun? Take the course that I'm working on right now. It's all very serious. It's about how to write a sales page where you can sell your product or service. What would make the course more fun? I could think of a few things, but even if you're stuck, it's possible to ask your clients or to just ask people in general, what would enable them to have a little more fun when they're learning or consuming a course. And that motivates them to finish the course. And when people finish a course, they're able to apply it. When they're able to apply it, they get results. When they get results, they come back. And they know that the next time they're working with you, it's going to be fun. So results are crucial, but the fun is just as important. And that takes us to the third part, which is the obvious, which is don't make me think. Or in other words, is this easy? If you've ever used Apple's podcast app, you'll realize what a pain it happens to be. All the user is trying to do is do one of three things. The first thing would be listen to a podcast. 2, save a podcast if they want to listen again. And 3, discover similar podcasts. Instead, the same company that invented the iPhone and got you to open it with 2 clicks forces you to struggle through these 3 simple actions. Everything's crazy. Every time I open that podcast app, I go, what are they doing? I can't seem to get to the podcast that I want. I can't get to the ones that I've saved. Everything's a mess. They've taken these straightforward actions, something that should be easy, and made it horrendously difficult. And what we have to consider is, how can we make things easy? The answer is simpler than you'd expect. And that answer is, what's difficult? So if you know what's difficult, if you can find out what's difficult, you can make it easy. For instance, when we started the article writing course, it wasn't hard to figure out where clients got stuck. Easily the most challenging part of the course is the starting point, or as we call it, the first 50 words. If you're trying to create drama, you have to know how to pick a story, massage that story, and then reconnect it to your article. If the article is about welding and your story is about welding, well, ding, 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 you're on your way. But if the story is about bees collecting honey and now you have to connect it to welding, well, you've got a big issue on hand. People struggle with that reconnect. They struggle to get stories. They struggle to write the story. They struggle to reconnect. What did we do to solve the problem? We made it more difficult. Until 2016, which was a whole 11 years after we started the article writing course, we didn't pay attention, or rather didn't give enough attention to what was difficult. Let's say the article writing course is 12 weeks. We would start off the first 50 words, or rather how to open the article, how to write this story, and we would start it in week number 8. With just 4 weeks to go, clients would panic because they had to learn this very complex task within those 4 weeks. But we have a problem because all of those notes were written and all of those assignments were written, and now we have to do all of that work. And yes, it was hard work to rewrite an entire course because it takes months. And the same thing applies to Apple's podcast app or anything that we find difficult. We have to go around letting clients use what we have created and then see where do they get stuck. How often do they get stuck? How do we find a way out so that their misery is not compounded? Now, it's likely that you don't conduct a course and instead you sell a physical product or you offer a service. What do? How do you make things easy? After all, there are dozens of touch points where you could fix things. The way around this problem is to have a tiny "what bugs me." It's not as intimidating as feedback, and it still gets you that feedback that you need, still gets you those results. So if you have a "what bugs me" on your website, in your store, in your office, even at your workshop, you'll be surprised at how many people give you suggestions, tiny suggestions that can improve your operations. We believe that clients come to us because we have superior products, we have superior services. It's probably true. However, in most cases, clients come back for specific reasons. Think of the places that you go, the sites that you buy from, and the places you eat at. You go there for results, you want to have some fun, and you want to have things that are not difficult and very easy to manage. These ideas aren't fancy, yet they reduce that risk factor and they inch up the like factor. When we're in business, we tend to look for super glitzy concepts. We want to improve our business and we look at, what's new, what's trending? But in reality, some of the most basic ones drive customers back repeatedly. So let's jump on that result, fun, and easy bandwagon. There's lots of room because people are too busy chasing their tails trying to do something extraordinary instead of doing what's essential. This, incidentally, is also the reason why we buy yet another recipe book when there are so many. The one that we pick up seems to feel like it will get better results. It's more fun to read, and it'll be a lot easier to cook. And that's why recipe books will keep selling today, tomorrow, and for decades to come. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. Let's find out what's happening in Psychotactics land. It's almost the end of the year, isn't it? I mean, yes, it's October, but still, November just shows up from nowhere, and then we have December. And then it's 2022. But wait, we're not in 2022 yet. On the 10th of November, we have pre-sale. Now, pre-sale is probably the best method that we've ever used at Psychotactics. And that is, instead of sending out all of this spam to everybody, which is what lots of marketers do, we don't send out a bunch of emails. We don't do any advertising, no joint ventures, nothing. And still the courses fill up. Still we manage to meet our targets for whatever sales we have year after year. How do we do that? We do that through pre-sale. And we're not the only ones. There have been people like Joe Pilates, yes, from Pilates, who also understood this concept of pre-sale. And what it is a system where you figure out when you're going to sell something, and then you start to work out all of these announcements and these goodies and all of that stuff a lot in advance. So think of it like a wedding. Why does everybody show up to the wedding? Not because, we're getting married. No, because there has been this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 20 steps, and then everybody shows up. And that's what it needs to be like when you're having an event. If that event is a sales page, a course, or anything that you're selling, maybe you're just selling some special type of coffee, well, that's an event. How can you pre-sell so that it's sold out super fast? That's what happens at Psychotactics. And if you want to know more about pre-sale and you want to get some goodies, then go to psychotactics.com and go to books above $200. And what you'll find there is the pre-sale course. You have to sign up and do the usual stuff. And then you get on the waiting list and it goes from there. Only the people on the waiting list get this notification, not everybody. As I said, no spamming. So all the goodies come from there, all the waiting list information comes from there, and there are only 25 copies. So go to psychotactics.com, go to the products, and go for books above 200, and you'll see exactly where pre-sale is located. It's somewhere down the page. And yes, it's on November the 27th, so that's when the pre-sale course will be available. So make sure that you get there sooner than later. It sells out pretty quickly, as you'd expect. The other product that people ask for time and time again is how do you set up a business? And there is a psychology of starting up. And this is at psychotactics.com/startup. Go there and have a look because it's quite interesting. There is a certain mindset that you need. And it's not just, oh, do we go on Pinterest? Do we go here? Do we go there? How do I get clients? There's this frenetic activity. And instead, what you have got to do is go about it systematically. And that's what Startup does. So go to psychotactics.com/startup. And that's pretty much it. I'll say bye for now, and we'll see you in 5000 BC. Bye-bye. Still listening? One of the fun activities that we used to have when we had our workshops is, and this is now a while ago because nobody's having any workshops, but when we used to have our workshops, first of all, people can just leave the room and go anywhere they want. So say you're doing an assignment, your group can go for a walk. They can go to the fountain. They can go anywhere. So that's already fun because you're not stuck in the room trying to do something. But more importantly, we would have a scavenger hunt or a treasure hunt, whatever you call it. And Renuka would give a list of stuff that they had to find within 1 hour, which is the most pricey thing or the most interesting thing. And it was always like this, pretty vague, not specific. But they had to take photographs of that. And they would run down the street like most people do when they're in a scavenger hunt, except they didn't have to bring anything back. They had to take these photographs. And then they would post it on the blog. And the next day we would vote. And this was a lot of fun. And this is the kind of mindset that you need to have with your business because your business is already running probably and you're not thinking of the fun aspect. And while people don't have dreary lives, they still appreciate a bit of fun, a bit of something, some cartoons here, something there, something that makes their life more interesting. Then here's what you paid for, you got it, now go away. Put some fun in the stuff you do. And now, let's have some fun music.